Welcome. Thank you all for choosing to spend your time on this webinar today. My name is Kate Hansen, and I am a health educator with Public Health Sauk County. I coordinate our Partnership for Prevention Coalition focused on reducing youth substance use here in Sauk County. During today's webinar, I'll cover why having conversations helps build trust and connectedness with your teen, and we'll share practical strategies for having these potentially awkward conversations. Today, we're talking about topics that can feel uncomfortable: alcohol, vaping, THC or marijuana, and screen time. But they're also topics your child or teen is hearing about from peers, online, and through other media formats already. This media environment they're living in is rapidly changing, with their ability to be chronically online or to be influenced by posts and likes and stories 24 hours a day. These are all the sources informing our teens about these topics. Whether you monitor or you don't monitor your teen's online experience, teens are absorbing information on these topics from all around them. We'll cover what you need to know about alcohol, vaping, and THC as a parent, and why talking with your teens is important and protective. And lastly, we'll briefly touch on screen time and digital media use in teens. So let's start by talking about the substances used most often here in Sauk County. Over the next few slides, you'll see the real numbers, the real percentages of students who report using alcohol, vapes, or nicotine, or using marijuana or THC. Even if your teen is not involved, they most certainly know a friend or classmates who are experimenting or regularly using these products. Understanding these numbers helps us see the environment our teens are living in and the pressures that they may face. Every 2 years, Sauk County schools participate in the Youth Risk Behavior Survey through the Department of Public Instruction. This survey asks students about a variety of health behaviors. So let's take a look at what's happening here in Sauk County. Sauk County youth are drinking more than their peers across the state. In 2023, 28% of high school students and 13% of middle school students say they've drank alcohol in the past 30 days. Of those that say they drink, 1 in 3 had their first drink before age 13. And we'll talk a little bit about brain science and why that statistic is so very striking. It's important to know the alcohol industry is always evolving and seeking out new consumers for their products. A key trend we've seen lately is the rise in flavored alcohol beverages like hard seltzers or other ready-to-drink cocktails. These products contain high amounts of alcohol and often taste sweet or fruity and can mask the amount of alcohol, making it easier for teens or anyone who's consuming them to drink more before they realize actually how intoxicated they are. Further, popular, long-standing non-alcohol brands have started to collaborate with the alcohol industry, creating a spiked or hard version of their long-standing brand. For example, Sunny D offers a vodka seltzer now, or Hard Mountain Dew. Although the industry states the intended audiences are adults over 21, youth are definitely paying attention since many of these brands are things they currently drink or are already aware of. We do know by talking with youth that the most often cited way they get access to alcohol is by getting it from older siblings, friends, or even getting it at home with or without their parents' permission. This is why locking up or storing your alcohol securely in your home is an easy step to ensure your teen doesn't have access to alcohol at home. Sauk County Partnership Prevention provides free fridge locks for anyone living, working in Sauk County. Email us at p4psoc@saukcountywi.gov to receive your free fridge lock. When you hear the word tobacco, you might think cigarettes or chew that contain tobacco leaf material like you see on the slide. Today, there are so many more products that are synthetically created or created in a lab that contain the same addictive chemical as the plants. And that chemical is nicotine. Further, the way that people consume nicotine has changed, and popular methods now include using an electronic device or a vape, or using a pouch for oral delivery. So here in Sauk County, we see that youth are vaping at about the same rate that their peers are. 15% of high school students and 5% of middle school students have reported that they've vaped in the last 30 days. It's important to know that when we look at the survey, we can recognize there are certain other identities that have a higher risk or are much more likely to vape than others. Those include students who don't feel like they belong at school, those who get below average grades, members of the LGBTQ community, those receiving special education services, and students identifying either as Native American or those of multiple different races. Many products, if you think vapes and pouches, claim to be tobacco-free. However, the nicotine in these products is still the same nicotine, whether it's grown in a plant or developed in a lab. This tobacco-free label was an attempt by the tobacco industries companies to get around the FDA definition or the legal definition of what a tobacco product was at one time. As of 2022, the law now clarifies that synthetic nicotine products are created, or excuse me, are regulated by the FDA exactly like tobacco derived nicotine products are. So essentially, in the eyes of the law, these two product categories are the same regardless of where that nicotine is derived from. Let's talk a little bit more about vapes. Just to clarify what I mean by a vape is a device that has a battery that heats a liquid into an aerosol that's inhaled into the lungs. This type of delivery or vaping action is a major concern for three reasons. First, vapes contain much more nicotine than combustible cigarettes have ever contained, meaning that in one vape, you may consume more nicotine than in the same amount or the same pack of cigarettes. Secondly, vape manufacturers are creating vapes to be much more smaller, discreet, and easy to hide. Third, vaping introduces heavy metals into your lungs, which can cause a number of lung conditions. The combination of easy to hide, super discreet, and the different flavors that companies are adding to their vapes make them especially appealing to youth. Vape juices contain nicotine and flavoring, as I mentioned. The combination of having unique flavors like lychee ice or watermelon or pineapple um, means that the nicotine can be delivered smoothly without that harsh nicotine taste that combustible cigarettes or other leaf tobacco forms have. This means that teens might not be noticing how addicted they're becoming to these products because they're just tasting that flavoring. The brain during teenage years is especially sensitive to nicotine's effect on attention, memory, and impulse control. Now, the industry is also definitely still targeting teens. Over here on the left, you see an example of those strawberry shortcake ice cream bars and how there is a vape fluid that, marketing-wise, looks almost identical to that and claims to taste exactly like a product that any person of any age might really enjoy. Why do we need it to look exactly like the ice cream bar? To attract people, mostly younger people, to that specific product. Now, there on the right are two examples of what are called smart vapes. These vapes have Bluetooth technology or connectivity in them, allowing them to connect to someone's phone or music player. Again, just staying very connected to digital media and the internet as well. Plus, also that vape, that addiction high that they get from using the product contained in that device. These are two great examples that you can use when talking with your teens to get them to critically think about how the tobacco industry is creating consumers for life for their products. Let's talk a little bit about nicotine pouches. Nicotine pouches are a newer product gaining popularity amongst teens because they're so discreet. There's no smoke, there's no vapor, there's no smell. They also come in flavors like mint or fruit and can be almost used without detection, as these pouches are placed in the mucosa of the mouth or in the upper lip or lower lip as well. But don't let their small appearance fool you. These pouches still deliver high doses of nicotine and can cause addiction, mood changes, and difficulty concentrating. These pouches come in a variety of different nicotine levels. You see on the screen 6 or 7 milligrams in each pouch. There are some that you can purchase that are labeled up to 20 milligrams of nicotine in one pouch. And typically, one container contains anywhere between 15 to 20 pouches. So, at 20 milligrams per pouch, at 20 um, pouches in a pack, that's more than 18 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine. Because these patches can come in such high doses, even occasional use can lead to dependence and addiction very quickly. Cannabis plants can contain more than 100 different chemical compounds. Two often named chemical compounds are delta 9 THC or CBD. Delta 9 THC is a psychoactive compound, meaning that when it's consumed, it affects how the brain functions. It alters mood, awareness, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. In the US, federal regulations maintain that a cannabis plant that is grown with a concentration greater than 0.3% delta 9 THC is classified as a marijuana plant, while plants containing less than that of delta 9 THC are classified as hemp. Growing hemp became legal in 2018 with the passage of the US Farm Bill. This classification change was meant to give farmers another crop option to grow, but rather created an unregulated market for psychoactive products that are derived from hemp plants. Delta 8 THC or delta 10 THC are compounds that are derived or chemically created from the hemp plant. So these things don't naturally exist in the hemp plant, but smart people, smart chemists have taken those plants and used a chemical process to uh, transform what is in those plants into another psychoactive compound. This process is entirely unregulated and can include many harmful additives. Because these products are created in an unregulated market, Delta 8 THC or Delta 10 products may contain things that consumers don't know or don't want to consume. Uh, it can also be risky consuming these products because there's no consumer protection agency overseeing dosage instructions, dosage amounts, any impurities in these products. Basically, these manufacturers can say anything about these products because there's a loophole that allows them to be created. Lastly, I do want to emphasize that it is expected in research when it catches up that delta 8 THC, delta 10 THC, or any of the other hemp derivatives have the same similar impacts on youth brain development and overall health as delta 9 THC has been shown to do. Although these products are all relatively new and there's new derivatives coming out regularly, they're all cousins to that psychoactive delta 9 THC, which we know has documented health impacts, especially for youth under 25. In Sauk County, youth are using marijuana at about the same rate as their peers in the state. 13% of high school students and 3% of middle school students report that they've used marijuana or cannabis in the last 30 days. Again, here you see 18% of the high school students who say that they've used marijuana started that use before they were age 13. It's important to recognize that because these products, hemp-derived THC products, were created in a loophole, they are found in a variety of different places within our communities and in online sales. Access to these substances has never been easier. There's weak age verification, if there is any verification, meaning we're not sure if stores check IDs, we're not sure how strong online storefronts are at verifying the age of the purchaser as well. We also know that older friends and family members or others around younger individuals can certainly purchase these products for them or give them to younger folks. We also recognize there's not a lot of rules and regulations around the marketing of these products. So many have flavors that look very appealing to kids because it mimics candies, sodas, and other snacks. They're very colorful, as you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen. Social media has also taken a huge role in increasing the awareness of these products for many people. Um, Peers and influencers use these products on their social media, which normalizes their use and makes them seem fun or a low risk activity. Now, we've talked a little bit about the substances that we see most often used by youth here in Sauk County. Let's dig into what does it mean to be an adolescent, and their brain development during this important period. Generally, the word adolescence refers to that long period of growth and development that truly creates a unique, independent person out in the world. We consider it between ages 10 to 25, that developmental period where there's numerous biological, cognitive, and social growth activities. When we look at the brain during this period, there's two key areas. The prefrontal cortex, which is the front side of the brain on the right side of your screen. This area is responsible for planning, foreseeing consequences, impulse control, and decision making. Just to describe further, this part of our brain is not fully developed by the time we reach adolescence. It's still wiring itself up and making connections between itself and other areas of our brains. Now, the next important area we need to look at when we think about teens and adolescents is the limbic system. This is a series of structures on the inside of the brain, so you really can't see that here on my slide. But this area is responsible for our emotions and our rewards we receive for doing things that keep us alive and healthy, like sleeping and eating and socially interacting with others. This system is fully online by the time we reach adolescence and is extremely sensitive during early adolescence, so ages 10 to 18. This disconnect between these two systems, because of their difference in their development rate, is super important to understand. There's an imbalance between emotions and motivations and the risk evaluation and impulse control areas of our brain. That means that teens feel emotions and rewards intensely, but don't have the full ability to regulate their reactions to those feelings. That's why teens might say, well, I know this is a bad idea, but then they still end up doing it. The brain's not malfunctioning, it's developing actually as is expected during this life stage. A lot of researchers focusing on adolescence like to describe teen brains as all gas and no brake. So let's dive a little bit further into what's happening during development in these two areas. Teen brains develop by laying down myelin. This is a kind of insulation for the nerve cells that enable the signals in our brains to be transmitted quickly and increase our brain's efficiency to send signals like, I'm feeling hungry. I like to use the analogy of a phone that needs to be plugged into a computer for a sync or update. If you have one of those cords that's super old and all that plastic wrapping is missing from there and all you see are those metal cords, does that work as efficiently as a cord that has that plastic sheath wrapped all the way around it? That plastic sheathing helps that cord be so much more efficient at transmitting those messages and the signals between the phone and the computer. That's the same thing that's happening during myelination in our teens' prefrontal cortex. Because the prefrontal cortex is still developing in adolescence, teens experience stress more intensely than adults. Tests, friends, conflict with friends, social media, athletic pressure. These are all things that can feel overwhelming because the brain's stress regulation area, or the prefrontal cortex, is still developing. And many times during adolescence is when teens really start to experience these pressures and stress for the very first time. Let's talk about that limbic system. Teen brains release more dopamine than adults do. Dopamine is a chemical that makes things feel fun, exciting, and worth repeating. Things like sleep, eating, all also light up dopamine. But further activities like gaming, social media, drinking alcohol, using a vape also activate that limbic system or that reward system in our brain. Because teens feel these dopamine peaks so much more intensely, they might be drawn to these activities to provide them that fast reward, like gaming, social media, drinking alcohol, trying a vape to see what it tastes like, trying a social media trend in front of our friends. When the limbic system, or the emotional part of our brain, is activated, that prefrontal cortex can be really slow to responding, to making it harder to think clearer, to make safer decisions, as all of these areas of the brain develop at two different rates in adolescence. It's also important to know that peer approval lights up that reward center. When friends are watching, the teen brain becomes even more sensitive to taking all of the risks of all kinds, even positive ones, like trying out for the school play. This doesn't mean that teens are reckless on purpose. It just means that the brain responds dramatically to social rewards. In other words, doing something in front of or with our peers makes it just that much more rewarding in their brains. Think of that 6-7 trend that they like to share. Many times they're getting a dopamine hit every single time they hear someone else say it or they say it themselves. Substances can look very attractive to teens as a coping shortcut, not because teens want to be reckless or impulsive, but because they're trying to manage these tough feelings they might experience for the very first time with super quick fixes. Because adolescent brains are still developing, I'm gonna sound like a broken record on that. They are more sensitive to stimulation of all sorts. They learn habits so incredibly quickly. Think learning a language or playing an instrument. A young person can pick this up so much faster than an adult can. On the negative side of this, however, it means that youth who use substances are much more at risk than adults for long-term, long-lasting negative effects of that substance use. They learn the habit of addiction very quickly. They carve a pathway or a connection in their brain. If they're bored, they drink alcohol. If they're anxious, they drink alcohol. If they're depressed, they drink alcohol, perhaps. In addition to being more likely to be addicted to alcohol or other substances later in life, there are other negative effects of substance use, such as mood disorders, permanent lowering of impulse control. Alcohol, nicotine, and cannabis can change the way connections in the brain are formed, which harms part of the brain that controls attention and learning. It is important to help your teen develop connections in their brain for healthy habits like sleep, self-regulation, stress management, and as a parent, talking with your teen can help them create these connections in their brains for healthier behaviors before they introduce substances to their brains. Your everyday conversation matters more than you think as a parent. When you talk with your teens about stress and healthy ways to cope and making choices, you're helping their brain learn how to manage emotions in a healthy way. You're helping them build the skills to handle emotions and challenges later in life. Teens get messages from friends, school, social media, but parents remain one of the strongest voices during adolescence. When parents start the conversation in middle school, even briefly, about substances, it normalizes discussing tough topics. Teens then feel more comfortable asking questions later on or sharing what they've been seeing amongst their peers. Many parents report that they feel uncertain on how to bring up topics like vaping or marijuana, or worry that talking might actually encourage their teen to try that substance. But research shows us the opposite. Teens who talk with parents early and often are less likely to engage in risky behaviors. Setting clear expectations early also shapes their internal compass. When teens know their family's values, when they hear your reasons, they're more likely to pause and consider those messages during socially pressure-filled moments. This helps your teen feel more connected to you. You don't need to be a perfect parent. You just need to be willing to talk. This will help strengthen your connection, and connection is one of the strongest protective factors you can influence as a parent. It's also important to remember what's unsaid by you could be interpreted as your permission or your lack of concern about a particular behavior or topic. So it's important to remember your voice is powerful. Because alcohol, vaping, and marijuana share the same common risks and impacts on youth, the conversation skills we're going to discuss will work across all of them and many other topics as well. I want to share that last year our coalition did focus groups with parents, and we also did focus groups with teens. We asked both of these different groups, what was it like? Did your parents talk with you about alcohol? Do you talk with your teen about alcohol? Overwhelmingly, our parents said, yes, we talk with them all the time. Our teens, though, said, not really. They just kind of barked orders or delivered a don't drink and drive message as I walked out the door, and that was it. So it's clear there's a disconnect between how parents and teens see conversation happening on these topics. But it's completely okay to be nervous. We're going to give you some tips in the next couple of slides to help you feel more confident talking with your teen. You're going to want to position yourself as a safe, non-judgmental person to talk with. First thing, put down the phone, remove the internet device from the area that you're planning on talking in or communicating with your teen in. Keep your focus on them and encourage their focus on you. Second, you're going to focus on being non-judgmental. To do this, you will need to resist your immediate urge to evaluate what your teen is telling you to respond. So you're going to start to notice when you start formulating your responses to them, is your teen actually done talking? If not, don't interject. Don't lead with any rebuttals or arguments. To be non-judgmental, you're going to recognize what's happening in your own body and relax yourself using deep breathing or other techniques when you start to feel anxious, defensive, or upset during a conversation. And you're going to try to focus on understanding them and using curiosity rather than immediately agreeing or disagreeing with your teen. If your teen doesn't feel safe talking with their parents, they'll still get information from those peers, social media, or the internet. Feeling heard matters so much to your teen. Even if you don't feel like the whole topic was covered, but they initiated the conversation with you, that's a huge step in the right direction, and hopefully they'll continue to return to you as a trusted resource. I always encourage parents to stay calm and curious during conversations. Curiosity helps keep the door open, asking questions like, what do you think about that? Or how do kids your age see this? This signals to them that you're interested in their perspective, not just trying to control their behavior. That makes conversations feel safe and more collaborative. Curiosity also buys you time. You don't have to respond perfectly in the moment or have all the answers to every single question. You can learn more from your teen and or other sources, think about what you've heard, and then bring it back up in a conversation later. This also gives you time to check in again with your own emotions that you've experienced during an exchange, as you have to go seek an answer that you might not have immediately. I always say you can use the statement asking for a break, something like, I'm feeling a little upset and I need a moment to calm down. Can we pick this up after I get a glass of water? It shows to them that you're not done with the topic and that you're recognizing that you need to step back and take care of your needs within the context of the conversation. When adults move too quickly into correcting, warning, or fixing, teens often shut down or give short answers just to end the conversation. Over time, curiosity helps build trust, and when teens feel heard rather than corrected, they're more likely to be honest, even about uncomfortable topics like having tried a vape. That honesty is what allows parents to guide effectively later on. We encourage you to think about choosing the right moment. Face to face or serious sit down talks can feel super intense for teens. Rather, sitting side by side for conversations on the couch helps reduce pressure and defensiveness. We encourage you to think in terms of frequent, brief check ins rather than long, drawn out conversations. Lots of parents tell me no eye contact settings are great, especially in the car between school and home and practice or other trips. They're stuck in the car with you. And maybe that's the only time you're one on one with that particular teen. Other great examples are while you're walking the family dog or cooking together before or after watching a movie. Some low pressure conversation starters could sound like, "Hey, I heard something on the radio about vaping this morning, and it made me think of you. Have you heard much about it at school?" Or, "No big talk here, but I'm just curious, what's normal around alcohol at birthday parties these days?" Or, "If you ever have questions about substances like alcohol, I want you to know that I'm a safe person to ask those questions to, even if they're completely random." We encourage you to use open-ended questions. This helps reduce defensiveness and one-word answers. Using open questions invites them to really consider their response, and asking them about what they notice rather than what they do helps lower the stakes in the conversation and keep it going. Some open-ended questions could sound like this: How do your friends feel about screen time and social media? What do you think is so hard about saying no to alcohol? What would be a fair family rule about phone use or parties? It's always easy to say, "Tell me more about that," because it asks them to reconsider what they've just shared and to explain it in another way. This really helps get quieter teens drawn out into that conversation. After you've given their carefully considered response, time and attention, you're going to want to reflect back what you heard. You can do this by showing them that you're listening, by mirroring or rephrasing what they said back to them. So you might say something is, "So what I'm hearing is you're afraid," or "It sounds like you felt overwhelmed. Let me see if I understand this correctly." Or "You felt," inserting an emotion you heard in their statement when something happened. For more understanding on reflective listening, you can watch this short video. It's linked in the video notes here below. Up until this point, we focused on listening, asking open-ended questions, and reflecting their feelings, and really making sure our teens feel like they've been heard. This matters so much because teens open up to guidance after they feel that they've been understood. Once your teens really know they're listening, this is where you can shift into guidance. Sharing family values doesn't mean lecturing or delivering a long speech. It means calmly naming what you care about and why. For example, instead of just saying, "We don't vape, we don't allow vaping," you might want to say, "In our family, we care about protecting your brain and lungs while they're still developing. That's why we don't allow vaping." Explaining the why helps teens see boundaries as care, not control. Middle schoolers, especially, are starting to question rules, so understanding the reasoning behind them helps them build trust in you and buy into that rule. Brief personal stories can help explain values, but should be used carefully. A short story that focuses on what you learned or what you do differently is often helpful. This sharing of a story is not about sharing every detail or normalizing risky behavior. So if a story doesn't clearly support your value or message, you should just skip it. The goal of this step is balance. You listen first, then you connect their perspective to your expectations and boundaries, sharing the why behind these expectations and boundaries. When teens feel respected and guided, conversations are more likely to continue over time. Middle schoolers do best when expectations are clear, consistent, and predictable. Unclear or shifting rules can actually increase anxiety and testing of limits, especially in those middle school years. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being harsh or controlling. It means calmly explaining what is allowed and what isn't. And most importantly, again, that why. Framing expectations around health and safety helps teens understand that rules come from care, not that power. For example, instead of saying, because I said so, as a why behind a rule, you might say, our family values a healthy body and brain, so we protect our bodies and brains by not drinking alcohol before they're 21. You might also, in the context of the conversation, consider discussing an exit strategy from situations where your teen doesn't feel comfortable any longer, especially when they're offered substances. You want to directly give them permission to allow them to make you the fall guy. Let them know they can throw you under the bus with their friends. They can say things like, no way, I can't do that. My parents are super strict and they'll find out anyways. I also encourage parents and teens to pick a code word. Come up with a code word that your teen can easily text you if they need a ride home or an excuse to leave a sticky situation they feel uncomfortable with. It's also important to know when they use that code word, don't jump too quickly onto judging them or getting into why they felt uncomfortable in a situation. Rather, use that curiosity and calmness to understanding how they're feeling and listen to them in that moment. Perhaps praise them later on for safely using their own judgment. Lastly, practice makes perfect. So before your teen goes out with friends or in other social situations, practice ways they can say no to alcohol and vapes. Things like, no, I have a big day tomorrow, or no way, my parents will find out and then I'm dead. Just like practicing spelling or other skills we learn, practicing a refusal skill for alcohol, nicotine, or marijuana can help them feel more confident when they need to use those refusal skills. After we've listened to our teen about and shared our values about boundaries, the next natural step is to ask why certain behaviors are appealing in the first place. For many middle schoolers, substances or excessive screen time aren't about rebellion, they're about coping with the new to them stress they're experiencing. Teens this age are navigating academic pressures, social dynamics, identity changes, and sometimes anxiety or overwhelm, often without fully understanding what they're feeling. Substances like alcohol, nicotine, or THC can become coping tools because again, they promise that quick relief, distraction, and or peer approval. So when we only talk about the behavior, vaping underage, drinking alcohol underage, we miss what's underneath it. This is where parents can shift conversations towards stress management, asking questions like, what's a tough part of your day? Or what do you feel when you're stressed or bored? This opens the door to understanding what your teen is dealing with emotionally. These conversations send a powerful message. I care about the whole picture, the whole you, not just the rule breaking behaviors I'm seeing. This allows you to reinforce healthier coping options. Things like taking a break, moving their body, talking with someone they trust, doing something creative. These are those healthy coping strategies you're going to help them create those connections to do within their brains. You don't have to fix their stress. Even just helping your team name their stress and feel supported can reduce the pull towards those unhealthy coping strategies. Now, undoubtedly, some conversations are not going to go well. When conversations start to get tense, slowing things down matters more than winning the point. We encourage parents to use I statements to help keep the focus on your concern rather than a teen's behavior. For example, I feel worried about when I hear kids vaping at school. Or instead of a statement like, you're making bad choices hanging out with those teens that vape. This reduces the defensiveness of your teen and keeps communication open and safer between you and them. Again, if emotions are running high, it's okay to pause the conversation. You can say something like, I don't want to turn this into an argument right now. Let's come back to this topic at a later time. Staying calm, connected, and willing to come back into the topic keeps the door open for future conversations, and those ongoing conversations are what makes the biggest difference over time for your team. So let's summarize these takeaways about what you're going to do in conversations with your teens. You're going to want to start early and often. You're going to want to set yourself up to be a safe, non-judgmental resource. We encourage you to stay curious and calm using open-ended questions. You're going to listen and reflect back to them. Then you're going to connect what you're seeing to values, and you're going to set clear boundaries and expectations. Then lastly, always try to bring it back around towards coping and managing their stress to help make those healthy coping strategies those default choices to pick. Your relationship with your teen is one of the strongest protective factors you can build for them as a parent. Now, shifting gears a little bit, we often hear that conversations about alcohol, vapes, and THC sit along ongoing challenges with phones and digital media use. Digital media refers to all the different forms of content found on the internet, whether it's a video, a reel, a TikTok, a Facebook post, a Snapchat. Whereas the word screen time refers only to the quantity in hours of the amount of digital media that's consumed. As we are all adults who have experienced the explosion of digital media platforms and devices over the years, I want you to think in your head of a time in which either you or someone else's screen time impacted them. It could be a positive impact or a negative impact. When I think of this, two examples come to my mind. I think of the strong connections I still have with my foreign exchange students from high school because I'm able to still connect with them on social media and share parts of our lives together. Now, on the other hand, when I find myself endlessly scrolling a platform like TikTok, instead of doing something I know that will benefit me and help me get better sleep, like a nightly stretch and yoga routine before bed, it definitely has a negative impact on me. These examples illustrate that digital media use is a real balancing act for every single person. There are definitely some benefits and there are still some negative risks to consider. Research in the area of digital media consumption and youth development is still ongoing and faces many challenges, especially in the fact that digital media is so rapidly changing and evolving. However, social researchers agree that digital media can influence how adults, kids, and teens feel, learn, think, and behave. That's why it's important to understand both the benefits and the risks of digital media use or internet use, and to think carefully about digital media expectations and boundaries that can help keep these things, the benefits and the risks, in balance for your teen. Let's talk a little bit about the potential benefits. First, social connections. Teens can talk with family and friends online. Identity and self-expression and self-affirmation. Teens can share their hobbies and activities through text, video, and pictures, which can help them learn more about who they are. Community support for a young person's identity. Social media can be used as a safe space to gain social support, learn through each other's stories, and find validation through shared experiences. Interest-driven exploration. Teens, as they develop more independence, can pursue new ideas or hobbies online or follow educational or health-related or inspirational accounts. Empowerment and civic engagement. Teens can use social media to learn more about causes they care about, engage in activism, and connect with communities on and offline. Fun and entertainment. Whether watching funny videos, playing online games, or keeping up with music and pop culture, social media can help teens relax and have some fun. Now, on the flip side, some potential risks include cyberbullying. Teens may experience or witness bullying behaviors or hurtful behavior online. Body image and disordered eating. Social comparison is common, especially on the image-based platforms. Image-altering filters and profiles that focus on disordered eating or thinspiration can lead to a negative self-esteem and impact how teens think about their own appearances. Harmful content, despite any platform's best efforts to prevent it, harmful content like pornography, child sexual abuse material, and self-harm or violence depictions can still be found on social media. Unwanted contact. Teens may receive unwanted contact from strangers or from companies trying to sell them things. Sleep. Sleep is essential and can be negatively impacted when teens postpone bedtime so that they can continue to use social media for entertainment or feel the pressure to be responsive to friends. The use of mobile devices during bedtime can make it harder to fall asleep and get to deep restorative sleep that teens need. Digital stress. Constant access to a wide array of social content designed to keep teens online as long as possible can be overwhelming. Teens may be anxious about likes or engagements and have fear of missing out or FOMO when they're away from their device, or struggle against any expectation to always be available to their peers. We might wish for a simple solution or a set of rules to follow, like a 2-hour screen time limit that's been recommended in years past. But that rule doesn't address the whole picture around children and teens when it comes to digital media. To help parents better set age-appropriate digital media use expectations and boundaries, the American Academy of Pediatrics created a series of handouts for each developmental age group called the 5 C's of media use. The 5 C's of media use are based on the child, the content, ways to calm down, what media is crowding out, and ongoing communication. Each group, each age group handout starts with information about the developmental stages teens and kids are going through and how this can influence their media use. It also describes healthy media habits to strive for at home. The next tool parents can use is the healthychildren.org Family Media Plan. We'll watch a quick video next.
What is media? It's television, smartphones, video games, apps, social media, smart speakers, and any other technology connected to the internet, whether at home or at school. A family media plan is a personalized agreement that can help your family find balance, both online and off. The plan provides age-based tips to help you communicate about media and resources to make the plan work for your family. To create your plan, simply start by entering some information about your family. Next, select from a list of 8 specific priorities that matter most to you and your family. You can choose them all or just a few. Then, save your plan and refer to it whenever you need to. Get started today.
Whether you have teens who are already independently using media or young children, creating a family media plan can help you and your partner get together on clear expectations for your family unit. Each child and teen is different, so it makes sense to create something unique for each child to help them avoid overusing media and stick with those positive benefits of using digital media. The link to the family media plan is listed in the video notes below. Remember, the skills that we talked about prior in conversations can be used to connect and guide your teen on almost any topic, including digital media use. As we finish up, I'd like to touch on one subject briefly. The reality is, as much as we do to try to help our teens make the right choices about alcohol, vaping, THC, or digital media, it's important to recognize that teens may be struggling and need a further help. Take some time to talk with your teen if you notice mood swings or a defensive attitude, problems at school like falling grades or poor attendance, breaking family rules, a lack of interest in their appearance or favorite activities that kind of suddenly appears. Talking with your teen's teachers or school counselors or pediatricians are all great places to start accessing help when a teen is struggling with any of these things and needs further help. At Public Health Sauk County, we maintain a resource guide for youth substance use and mental health concerns. This guide covers online resources as well as in-person providers for therapy and other treatments. You can download this guide from our website or use the link in the video notes below. We offer an adult version of this guide as well. Lastly, I wanted to share a free to anyone mental health digital resource. Credible Mind is a digital platform that provides expert curated and scientifically backed mental health and self-care resources like stress management tips, meditation videos, podcasts, and book recommendations on specific topics and more. You visit Credible Mind by going to saukcounty.crediblemindcom to start checking in with your own mental health day. Just released recently is a specific Credible Mind site for youth ages 10 and up that they can visit. You'll go to saukcounty.crediblemindcom/landing/youth to start exploring now. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's webinar. Please scan this QR code or visit the web link in your video notes to tell us how we did in a quick survey. One of the best things we can do on a community level to help reduce underage drinking and vaping in our communities is to get involved. This means engaging our schools, healthcare systems, employers, government agencies, and prevention coalitions. Together, we can make a huge impact. Sauk County Partnership for Prevention is a coalition dedicated to doing just that, reducing youth substance use here in Sauk County. And we always need your input into our actions. We invite you to join us for our coalition meetings, which are on the fourth Thursday of select months every year from 1 to 2:15 p.m. You can join us via Zoom or join us in person. You can also sign up for our monthly e-newsletter to get the details on our next upcoming meetings in 2026 and other activities we're doing here in the community. I also want to highlight our sister coalition that helps residents across Adams, Juneau, and Sauk counties live tobacco-free lives. That's the South Central Alliance for Tobacco Prevention. They provide our coalition with expert support when it comes to preventing youth tobacco use and supporting access to equitable tobacco cessation and treatment options across all three counties. You can learn more about the South Central Alliance by visiting their website linked in the video notes below. Thank you so much for watching our webinar.